Your Money Matters Show. Your host, Ripon. This is your weekly show designed to empower you, designed to give you the confidence, designed to help you in the process when you're struggling with money. Yes, this is a show about you and your money. The question is, how do you prepare when there isn't any? The question is, where do you get it where there isn't any? And of course, when times are difficult, especially when you're feeling most vulnerable, what rights do you have? What responsibilities do you have? Those are some of many things we are going to be covering. So yes, welcome again to Your Money Show, to Your Money Matters Show. If you want to get in touch with me or my guest, 0207 791 5170. 0207 791 5170. So the question for today is, what do we have for you? Today we know times are tough when we all get old. The question is, what can be done to prepare? So there is going to be a tip for you to prepare for such time when we all get old and frail. And of course, we'll also be talking to our lawyer, Penny Nicholas, who is going to be giving us insight into her experience of dealing with elderly family members and how she went about dealing with family members in the context of social care, in the context of power of attorney, and of course in the context of money. Yes, welcome to Your Money Show. So today it's going to be first to start with your tip of the week. So the question is, what do you do and how can you prepare when you know you are going to retire, you know your cognitive functioning isn't going to work that well? So your tip of the week is just about that. So first things first, what you do is encourage seniors to simplify their financial lives. The reason this is important is because as you get older, your ability to manage money declines. So seniors may be more willing to do this if they collectively get better at educating people about how common age-related financial problems really are. So first is encourage seniors to simplify their financial lives. Now, the second is address financial planning early on through legal costs such as financial power of attorney and living trust. What does that mean? It means authorize lawyers and financial planners to contact a trusted relative or friend if the professional suspects diminish financial abilities. It can be made easier for professionals to get a senior care circle involved sooner rather than waiting for a frank financial disasters to happen. So what do? My second tip is address financial planning early. My third tip is encourage seniors to allow a trusted person to monitor their accounts. This could be family or any professionals who you trust. So the tips of the day is prepare, and prepare some more when things don't work out that well. So at least when it happens, it won't be as difficult. So on that note, let's basically go back to our topic. So it is about age and getting old and challenges that we come across in terms of getting old. So the issue is, what can be done? So to help us, we have a retired lawyer, Penny Nichols. Penny, are you there?
I'm here.
Penny, obviously, now you have went through a number of challenges in terms of dealing with your mother and, of course, then your father. So in your own words, tell me and my listeners what actually happened.
Thank you, Ripon. Well, in about 2010, we started to notice that my mother was getting quite confused and she was losing her confidence and she was starting to forget how to drive and how to cook. And so after a while, we took her to see the doctor and he said he wasn't sure, but he thought she might be getting dementia. And at that point, we started to think about what we needed to do in order
Can
to
you
help.
briefly tell us what is dementia?
Dementia is a disease of the brain, and unfortunately what happens is that you progressively lose your ability to perform normal daily tasks,
Such as?
such as getting dressed, getting washed, doing the cooking, just generally looking after yourself. So obviously, if you've also got to think about your finances, that's another problem for you, and the finances are going to be a big issue as time goes on and your condition deteriorates.
So how did you identify your parents had dementia?
Well, in the end, we took my mother to see her GP, and they have a special test that they do, which is designed to assess your cognitive faculties. And that is a pretty good indicator of whether you're starting to get dementia rather than just being forgetful because you're rather old.
So once your GP analyzed the situation, so what kind of support did your GP or their GP provide?
Well, he put us in touch with the local social care department in my mother's town.
Is that the council?
That's the council. And that's normally who you would be put in touch with if it started to look like you needed some kind of care in the home. And they send somebody out who assesses your situation and decides whether you do need some external help with things like washing, dressing, looking after yourself generally.
So did they assess, apart from mental assessment, was there any other assessment that took place?
They didn't look at her financial situation at that stage.
Why not?
Because she was still living at home with my father.
Okay.
And they thought that they could provide some care which would help them both to look after themselves in the house. But they weren't making them pay for that at that stage because they qualified for a carer's allowance.
So what actually happened then? Lead us through your journey. So went to social care
To go into a care home.
before.
Well, there's assessing my mother's financial situation, below which she would have qualified for the care home fees to be paid by the local authorities.
From top of your head, do you know what the cut-off point is, or does it vary depending on borough by borough?
No, the basic cut-off point is that you don't have to have savings or assets that are worth more than £23,700.
£23,700 is the threshold.
Yes.
Right. And anything else?
Well, the other thing is that obviously your assets could include a house if you happen to own the house.
So a homeowner?
If you're a homeowner. But there are some more complex rules about that, because in the case where you, the person being assessed, live in a house which you either own jointly with somebody else, or where you are living in it and you've got close relatives living in it, then the value of the house isn't put into that calculation.
Why not?
Well, because it's not deemed to be reasonable to expect the house to be sold over the head of the other people who are living in it too.
Sure. Go ahead.
Right, so in my mother's case, because my father was still living in the house with her, the value of the house wasn't taken into account when the council were looking at her finances. And she did initially have a little more than £23,700 in savings.
Right.
So that meant that when she went into care, she was responsible for paying her care home fees in the early days.
So what happens then? Do you have to pay up front, or how does that work?
You have to pay a month in advance, normally. And that can be quite expensive.
So how did you deal with managing her finances in terms of paying for social care or accommodation in this case?
Right.
And also any other bills that come with it?
Yes. Okay. Well, fortunately, at the time when we first suspected that my mother was having problems with her mental health, we made a lasting power of attorney. So we consulted a solicitor, and he helped us fill out the form.
What's the form?
It's available on the government website, www.gov.uk, and if you then put in the search term lasting power of attorney.
Could you tell us exactly why would you do that?
You do that because it gives the person or persons who are appointed as your attorney the authority to handle your finances on your behalf.
Perfect. Go ahead.
Okay, that is, of course, a big thing for many people.
Definitely.
And so you have to have a sensible discussion with the person about what that might entail. And the catch-22 here is that if you leave it too late,
In what way do you know you left it too late?
well, we didn't leave it too late, but if, for example, your relative is starting to lose their mental faculties and they go beyond the point where they can really appreciate what's going on, they are no longer capable of signing the lasting power of attorney in law.
Because they don't have mental state to sign it.
They don't understand what the document is that they're signing.
So then what happens?
Well, in that case, if you want to get authority to handle their finances, you actually have to go to court.
Which court is that?
That's called the Court of Protection.
Right, go ahead.
And you have to make a formal application to the court to be appointed as the guardian of that person for dealing with their finances or other aspects of their life.
So which form are you referring to? Is that the one?
That's not the lasting power of attorney. The lasting power of attorney is a much simpler procedure, but you should think about it early before your relative has stopped being capable of signing anything. So they have to be still deemed capable of signing the lasting power of attorney if you want to go down that route.
Right,
And the way that that's normally certified is by the doctor.
right.
They have to say that your relative, their patient, understands what the form means.
So am I right to understand this? The point of call initially is always through your doctor.
Yes, your
Right.
doctor is and should be helping you get through what can be a very difficult time for the family.
Right. So at what point does a solicitor get involved then?
Well, the solicitor can help you fill out the lasting power of attorney if you're worried about how to do that. It is actually quite straightforward, and there are a lot of guidance notes on the government website which would help you to do it if you didn't want to instruct a solicitor and you understood what they meant.
Could you tell us brief criteria?
Well, the criteria are obviously that the person that's going to be appointed has to be ready to do this because they have a duty of care towards the person who's giving them the power of attorney to look after their finances wisely.
So you have to be responsible.
You have to be a responsible person. It's advisable to appoint more than one person so you can kind of keep an eye on each other if you like. And it's advisable to specify in outline what sort of things you want them to do on your behalf. You know, for example, you don't want them to sell your assets to somebody at an undervalue, for example.
Okay, so I mean, going broader slightly, if someone is going to take the role of power of attorney, what advice would you give that person?
Well, I think you need to be aware that it is quite a serious responsibility, and it will entail you having to deal with quite a lot of paperwork over time because, for example, if you're now going to be responsible for making sure that your mother's care home fees are being paid, you're going to have to keep an eye on what's happening with the finances and also keep an eye on her bank accounts, etc.
So what could happen if you breach your duty?
Well, in theory, you could be taken to court and found to be in breach of that duty. I don't think that there are any criminal penalties, but you could be sanctioned, and it's possible, I suppose, that if you have mistreated the bank account and taken money out of it without authority, that you could be made to pay it back.
Right, so what, in the context of fraud?
Yes, exactly.
Perfect. So there, always be careful. But let me, in terms of looking at data, let me just look at what's been happening in the context of care anyway, nationwide. There is a thing, what we call postcode lottery, that leaves a lot of victims, abuse victims, without protection in the context of social care anyway. Nearly 212,000 concerns about adults being abused were investigated in England between 2016 and 17 because of where the victim actually lived. Now, under Care Act 2014, different local authorities that look after individuals under social care interpret their duty in many different ways. So therefore, vulnerable individuals like elderly are left at risk when they are finding themselves in, I suppose, abuse. Now, of course, Action on Elder Abuse, the only UK charity that exists in the UK that looks after or explores or investigates abuse against older people. They've recently stated that different councils have different risk assessment, and different councils actually investigates differently as well. So, for example, let's say in the borough that I live in, Hackney, 75% of abuse happens in their own homes. Whilst, let's say, for example, in East Riding of Yorkshire, 59% occurs in residential care homes. So obviously, it pretty much depends upon where you are and what your setting is. But of course, I also have a couple of tweets that I've just received right now. Okay, from Shazna Khalid. She tweets that, okay, I might as well kill myself before I get old and frail. You can't rely on state pension and council social care system to care one's care about, and no one cares about you. That's Shazna for you. And of course, we've got Nick DeMarco, and he states that best to start saving money now when young, so the pressure is not going to be as bad when you are old and frail. Preparation is key. And finally, Sonia Bindi, she's from Hackney. She goes, isolation is a killer disease for older generation, and no one talks about it. So, Penny, what are your thoughts on the tweets?
Well, I think they all make very valid points, and it is very important to try and think ahead, but obviously getting old and getting frail is not something that a lot of people really want to talk about, even with their close family. There is also something of a postcode lottery out there, because different local authorities have different care budgets. In some cases, they have an interest in trying to keep you at home for as long as possible because it's cheaper than putting you into care and paying for it out of their care budget. But there are risks attaching to both being at home with carers and also being in a bad care home. What I'd say about care homes, however, is that they are technically covered by the Care Quality Commission, which inspects them at regular intervals and checks on things like safeguarding. So in some respects, I suppose you could say that you are probably likely to be safer in a care home where there are lots of people keeping an eye on you than if you are living at home on your own and solely reliant on one person who's abusing you.
Your money matters. You are listening to Ripon Ray, your host. If you do want to get in touch, 0207 791 5170. And before we go on a break, there are 5 things that you may need to know about when it comes to aging and financial decline. First, declines in financial ability can easily be exploited by family, friends, and strangers. So this point is especially vividly brought to life in Time's story, which starts off by relaying the story of a man who got married late in life to a younger woman. Second is, even people who don't have Alzheimer's or other mental disease often experience increasing difficulties managing their finances as they age. And I'm afraid that's one of those things. The older you get, your mind just doesn't work as it did when you were 16. And of course, number 3, the ability to handle financial matters is often one of the first skills to decline in Alzheimer's and other common causes of dementia. And of course, Penny just talked about her family experience about the decline. And fourth, if you notice signs of financial impairment, you should start looking for other signs concerning for Alzheimer's or other dementia. So those are some of the things that you do decline as you get old. But of course, in terms of the topic, it's also important to understand what members of the public think about the same old issue of age.
I think elderly people now face loneliness, not all of them, but those that are living on their own. There's an internet explosion, which I think some of them are excluded from, but also I think there are financial barriers because of that, which is causing them lots of difficulties. But the most is because we're living longer in our house and not knowing where to go and how to improve that.
Usually our clients, the pensioners, they have issues with housing, with wealth benefits, or the state pensions. maybe health issues as well, and sometimes they need just support with different things, filling the forms or I don't know, applying for things, the travel documents, or there is that the free free oil.
Okay.
It's up to you.
Well, I'd like
Cost of
to.
living, and if like people like can't afford their health care, paying for is time in hospitals and things like that.
I think loneliness is the big problem because there's lot of
These
their
people are
friends
pretty good for old
and
people if they
also
want to ring them up
mobility
and ask
because
for
of that could
they're
prevent us
quite a
from
small
going out and
charity,
meeting
so they're
people.
more likely to be responsive
I
in
also
my
think
experience.
technology is a big part. A lot of older people don't know how to use a computer.
Yeah, that's very
a lot
true.
of
My
things
dad can't
you
use
have to
the
go
computer.
online to deal with them, like pay
You
bills.
can use the telephone though.
Welcome to your Money Matters show. Your host, Ripon Ray. If you've tuned in now and you want to get engaged in the conversation, 0207 791 5170. So, Penny, before we go on a break, tell us if someone is seeking advice, where they ought to be starting that conversation.
Right, well, there are a number of charities who focus on issues affecting the elderly, and one of the charities that I found very helpful is called Independent Age.
Okay,
They have a helpline,
go ahead.
0800
Mm-hmm.
319 6787.
Mm-hmm.
And they also have a website, if you're able to access that,
Right.
which is Independent Age, that's all one word, .org. And they have a lot of fact sheets on that website that make very easy reading, telling you about aspects of your financial situation and what happens when you need to go into care, which I would highly recommend.
Well, thank you for that. So, on that note, listeners, we'll be taking a brief break and get back to you. And once we are back, we'll be talking about slightly different, and the topic is going to be on court fines. Thank you for listening to Your Money Matters.
Okay.
Jones and Allen will use the power of the Lord to help
that all right?
hundreds of people each year
Perfect.
to stand up for their
Thank you,
rights.
that was
We
very
do things
interesting.
differently to help
Yeah.
people fight injustice, and we win cases every day. We'll give you honest, clear, straightforward legal
Right, so
advice.
now
We're
it's
upfront
court
to you about
fines.
any costs dependent on your case. You may be eligible for a no-win, no-fee arrangement. Call 0207
Sorry, I've done calling
874
Hey, don't worry about
8200
it.
for
If you can
free
think of
initial
any
advice, or
topics
visit our
in the
website at
future, just do let me know
www.hca.net. We'll help
that
you
you
and
want
your
to cover.
family stay
or-
strong and
Right,
fight for
okay.
your rights.
Well, I mean, I might think about what I've learned from my experience in Toynbee being the IA side, you know,
Yeah.
because that's obviously all tied in with what you do with Toynbee as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So think about it.
I mean, obviously, you know, the kind of exclusion that sort of thing. Yeah.
I've got someone also coming from St. Martin's talking about some of the barriers that they come across. Do you think you're able to cover on lack of internet access and elderly?
I'm wondering if there's somebody within Toynbee who's better qualified to be on their policy unit. I think they're right on that, usually. So, I mean, I can only give sort of anecdotal comments. I don't know what the overall position is, whether there are any statistics or if I can think of anything else there.
আমরা ইসলামিক ইনস্টিটিউটে যাই তারা লগে গিয়া পরামর্শ করি জিনিসটা কিলা সুন্দরভাবে করা যায়
So my experience
up to one
there,
of your
easier.
well, thank you much for asking me. I enjoyed it.
So I'll call you again.
Yeah, okay.
It's similar.
একটা ওসিয়ত নামা পড়তাম
You know, you can't
আমার সম্পত্তি থেকে একটা
overburden
অংশ
people with information,
ইসলামের
can you?
মসজিদে আমি দান করে দিয়েছিলাম
It's a scary thing to
সুন্দর
have
দান
to think
লাগে
about.
আমরা ছোট মসজিদের পক্ষ থেকে
Absolutely.
আপনাদের যতটুকু সম্ভব আমরা সাহায্য করবো যাতে
Take care.
আপনার
Thank you, by the way.
সুন্দরভাবে লেখা হয় Help is for the world to serve, educate and inspire our community. আপনি শুনছেন বেতার বাংলা প্রতিনিধি প্রবাসী বাঙালি গ্রেটার অ্যাসোসিয়েশন ইউকে তৃতীয়বারের মতো আয়োজন করতে যাচ্ছে চট্টগ্রাম মিলন মেলা ঐতিহ্যবাহী মেজবান ও সাংস্কৃতিক অনুষ্ঠান 2018 8 জুলাই রবিবার দ্য রয়্যাল রিজেন্সি ম্যানর পার্ক সকাল 11টা থেকে রাত 10টা পর্যন্ত নাম রেজিস্ট্রেশনের জন্য ইমেইল করুন gcauk2018@gmail.com অথবা কল করুন 079-3261-2667 অথবা 079-61-4253-58 চট্টগ্রাম মিলন মেলা 2018।
Welcome back to Your Money Matters. This time, we're going to be talking about court fines. If you want to get in touch, 0207 791 5170. Court fines. What is court fine? Why do we pay court fine? What is the process in court? What happens if you don't pay your fine? If you've been a victim of paying fines, get in touch 0207 791 5170. Court fines are one of the most important debts that we have to address. But of course, if you don't have money, what would happen if you don't pay court fine? 0207 791 5 England and Wales, such as traffic offences, fines for unpaid TV license, public order offences, and antisocial behaviour. And the truth is, list could go on. If you've experienced being given a court fine, 0207 791 5170. I want to hear from you. Tell me about your stories. Most common sentences given by magistrates are financial penalties and which you may call fines. And in terms of debt, when you do get it, you make sure you deal with it urgently because consequences of non-payment could be severe. And severe it can be, and that is going to prison. Hence, it's in a magistrate court. Now, magistrate courts also issue liability orders, i.e. council tax, or child support arrears, i.e. if you have to pay towards your child maintenance when you don't live with your child and child is looked after by your other ex-half. So again, council tax, child support arrears, both are also go through the courts, but their rules are slightly different from court fines. So, having looked at how or what a court fine is, the next question is how our magistrate fines are set. Now, if a court finds you guilty and sets a fine as punishment, you'll be asked to give details of your income. Now, details of your income is pretty much means tested, i.e. if you've got a salary coming in, if you're on benefit, all those things we looked at before considering what fine to give you. And of course, the fine will be based upon a number of other factors, such as the types of offence we're talking about. I know we talked about earlier on about traffic offences, we talked about public order offences, also we talked about antisocial behaviour, or even beating a policeman up. Those things would lead to magistrate deciding what the offence is and how serious the offence is, and of course, most importantly, when it comes to your money, it's about your ability to pay the court fine, the debt. So it's important that you go to the obviously hearing, because the moment they prosecute you, they have to give you a fair hearing, because yes, it could be you have committed the offence alleged, it could be that they've got the wrong guy. So it is important that you go to a hearing and literally talk about the actual fine and actual offence to make sure you have your right to have a conversation in front of a magistrate, and if need be, with a lawyer, a duty solicitor, if you don't have a solicitor before you go to court. So anyway, so once you go to hearing, you make sure as you're preparing for it, you take details of your finances, because before you go to court, the court will write to you and say, please fill a means form and bring the means form with you to court for proof of your income, proof of any benefit entitled in the. So overall, what the issue is, if you are guilty, if you have to pay your fine, whatever the amount is, the question is then boils down to is, what are you capable of paying per week, per month, or whatever period it might be. If you're not sure, it's important to seek advice from your local citizen advice bureau, legal advice center. If it's in Hackney, Tower Hamlets, Newham, there are so many advice services available to make contact and say, look, this is the situation. What help can you provide? Is it a debt related? Go and see a debt specialist. If it's about any other, make sure you act quickly is the most important thing, but also make sure you prepare for the hearing knowing what to expect in court. The fine that you might get is, if it's set higher than you can manage, if you don't go to court. Now, it's simply because, firstly, you're evading going to court, and secondly, you just don't have the opportunity to respond to what the magistrate is calling. It might be that you do end up paying more. So the secret word really is for you to go to court and show your face. A lot of people avoid going to court, but the fact is, if you don't, the magistrate will decide for you, and usually ends up being you worse off. And that's the last thing you want, or I want, when it comes to your money. If you want to share your stories, 0207 791 5170. 0207 791 5170. This is Ripon on your Money Matter show. It's weekly on Tuesday, 5 to 6, and it's all about dealing with issues that are most important, and nothing is more important, I think, than your money. So, how our court fines are collected. So that's the next issue, really. Now, court will issue a collection order explaining how you should pay the fine if you have not already agreed in court when you were there. This will usually be either you pay in full if you have the means. Some people are very rich, I suppose. It's one of their first offences, so what they will easily do is pay it there and then, so they don't need to worry about it, no doubt. But do bear in mind, court fines, usually in the context of crime, is a criminal offence, so it will be on your you'll have a criminal record, I suppose. So you can either pay in full if you've got the money, or if you think paying full is way beyond your means, then you have to think about paying weekly or monthly. Now, the other way could be, and usually courts try that as one of other last resorts, is attachment of earnings. This is when the courts approach your employer and they take money, if you're an employee, from your salary. So you don't really have to do much. It's just your employer has to pay upfront to the courts instead of you doing anything about it. But what you'll be seeing in the end is that your income will be lowered because parts of it has gone to the court to pay the court fines. Now, that's if you're actually working. If you're on benefits, your money will be going directly from your benefits. The interesting thing is, when you are on benefits, you will see that the amount is restricted to £5 per week. So it can't be anything more than £5. So, so that's you are, in a sense of deduction from your benefit. If you have issues with court fines, 0207 791 5170. So, what I have for you is really ways to deal with your magistrate court fines. So, how you deal with it? Of course, rather than ignoring it, best to respond to it when you see that courts have written to you. Best thing for you to do is prepare and seek advice. There are local charities nearby, CABs, legal advice centres, including Toynbee Hall. You also have on the day when at the hearing, if you think you want to argue against it, best thing for you to do is really, and if you want to challenge it, what I suggest you do is at the door, when you get the list caller, say you want to challenge it and can I see a duty solicitor. Now, in that regard, you are entitled to speak to a duty solicitor before you decide whether you're guilty or not. And that's what you must do. Firstly, to see whether if there are any defenses available in your case. Obviously, if there are any defenses, you definitely explore that because when a criminal case, burden is on the state, i.e. the police, to provide proof that that you are guilty, not the presumption that you are not guilty. So although we always forget the presumption. 0207 791 5170. Have you been a victim of police? Have you had to pay court fine? Have you been to court hearing and you found yourself not sure what to do? Or have you found that the whole process is difficult? Have you found that you had problems paying the bills? If you're one of those, 0207 791 5170. So yes, we've explored the court fines. We've seen how the court fines work. So what can it happen when you find that there are a number of other debts that you have to pay? Let's say, for example, you've got a court fine, you've got a loan. Let's say you've got also bills to pay like fuel bills, also credit cards that you just can't afford to pay because suddenly you deal with court fines. Then what? What do you do? And where can you go to really properly find out how you can resolve all those problems? Now, I'll be honest with you. Recently, I've dealt with a client because I myself get advice on money and advice on debt, also the debts, including court fine. Now, if your income, let's say, is, for example, 7310, and you're getting job seekers allowance, nothing else, no child tax credit, no child benefit, you're getting a housing benefit paid, what do you do with the court fine? Now, if the only debt is court fine, and then you've got, let's say, other loans and credit cards, your priority has to be your court fines, because what would happen is if you miss on paying your court fines and the collections officer had approached you saying you haven't paid, now the collection officer will no doubt instruct a bailiff. Now the real challenge is when you come across a bailiff, naturally the cost of your court fine will no longer be what it was initially. It will go higher. And of course, let's be frank about it, other debts also go to bailiffs, loans it may be, council tax might be, but the real issue is with court fines. If you do not pay, the magistrate, yes, I mean that magistrate, has the power to put you in prison. And that's the reality of it is you have to take court fines seriously because magistrates courts deal with issues such as traffic offences. That's why you take fines very seriously. Now, let's say, for example, bailiffs have not been able to recover the money. The question is, can they recover the money in court? Bailiffs' fees do not cover as part of the court fines. Bailiffs are there to enforce what the wishes of the cause. If they have not got it, if they have not been able to recover it, that would mean bailiffs are not entitled to their money. The truth is, courts don't know it, you don't know it, so therefore, sometimes bailiffs get away with it. But I don't want that to happen. I want you to be the one on top because I want you to know your rights. 0207 791 5170. Have you had the experience of being in court for a crime that you think you may have committed for which you have to pay court fines? If you have, I want to hear from you. Welcome to your Money Matters show. It's about you and about money. Your host, Ripon Ray. 0207 791 5170. So yeah, we talked about bailiffs. We talked about also imprisonment. But let's not forget, you also have other money issues, loans and credit card. So what can you do? Of course, once you've sorted your court fines out, either you paid minimal amount from your benefit since you are on job seekers allowance. What you could do, once you've sorted out, let's say, deduction from your benefit, having them taken you to court, that's pretty much sorted. Now, if you have any pounds left, you may want to think about then paying £1 a month to other creditors, or whatever you can, so long court fine has been resolved. Because in the end, last thing you want is for you to be in prison for non-payment of court fine. And also, of course, we've talked about the ways that you can actually get help when you do get that letter from the police saying you are going to be in court. If that's the case, go ahead, go to your local CAB, Citizen Advice Bureau, Law Centre. And of course, I'm here, 0207 791 5170. So overall, what have we covered? We have covered the process of court fines. We have covered how you go about dealing with the court fines. We've also covered looking at paying within your means. But when there are a number of other debts, court fine always comes first because of the severity. If we look at it loan, I'm afraid that is not a priority. If you're looking at your credit cards, that is not priority. What can happen with loans? Yes, if you don't pay your loan and you default, what the creditors can do is basically serve you with a default notice, which is quite common, and I'm sure many of you have seen letters saying you better pay up or we'll take you to court. Yes, but it's not the same thing. It is not the same thing as court fines. Now, loans. Yeah, they'll serve you with a default notice. Second, they'll take you to court if they want to. Sometimes it takes years for them to take you to court, but they can take you to court. Yes, once there is no any forms of communication and they've taken you to court, they might get a counter-court judgment against you. For what? For money. Yes, it is about money. It is about your money in the end. So then it's about looking at ways to repay. If there is no communication, you're still on job seekers allowance, you can still pay them £1 and they cannot deduct money from your benefit. But with court fines, they can deduct from your benefit so long you make it clear. So that's what you have to do. So yes, 0207 791 5170. Your Money Matters show, weekly, Tuesday, 5 to 6. I want to hear from you, your interest on money, any topics that you want to cover on money. Yes, your money. So yeah, again, the rule when it comes to recovery of money is, as I explained about loan, the same rule is also with credit card. They take it to court, recover it with counter court judgment, and then try to enforce it through bailiff. Again, once bailiff get involved, charges are the same as court fines. But it's just that bailiffs know that court fines is serious, so they will act serious, usually more serious. So that's what you need to think about. And the same as loan, the credit card, and of course overdraft. But of course, do bear in mind, if there are other debts like fuel debts, you need to think about dealing with that. Again, there is no justification for not seeking advice. So what have we covered so far? We have covered court fines and how we go about doing it and how to go about challenging it. But I have just received a tweet in relation to, well, actually a couple of tweets in relation to court fines. One is from Hakim. He says, I got done by the police. It was a stitch up with me. I did nothing but the magistrates believed the two policemen. Although I was fined, I still feel that the system is for those who are powerful. I'm afraid we get beaten up. This is Hakim. Now I've got Rukia. Rukia says, if you're fined, you might as well pay it. I don't want any aggro. If I am right, then I'm right. The truth will prevail. Looks like Rukia believes in justice. If you are right, the right will prevail. Okay, I've got a final one from Camille. I got done for drinking and driving. I paid it soon. I was told to pay it. Otherwise, it is a hassle. Silly me. Yes, Camille, at least you know you're silly. So this kind of makes this make the Money Matter show coming to an end, I suppose. In the future, if you want to chat about your money, about any topics related to money, and you want to have a conversation, 0207 791 5170. I want to hear from you. If I'm not there, just call Betar Bangla and say, look, I want to hear about X, Y, and Z. If you want to talk about relationship, travel, and money, what could happen? If you want to talk about rent arrears, talk to me about money. It's all about money. I want you to say what you want, because in the end, it is about your money. So on that note, listeners, my time has come to say goodbye, and let's to kind of recap what we covered so far. Before the break, we covered about aging and some of the difficulties that we all come across. And we've heard from a lawyer, Penny Nichols, talking about her experience of her parents and social care, and some of the financial challenges she and her family had come across in relation to age and money. After the break, we talked about court fines and what happens when you don't pay your court fines and how to go about dealing with the court fines. But of course, there will be plenty more in the future, all about talking money. And just to recap about what members of the public think about the first part, there we are. Let me play it to you.
I think elderly people now face loneliness. Not all of them, but those that are living on their own. There's an internet explosion, which I think some of them are excluded from. But also, I think there are financial
All
barriers
yours.
because of that. Something they're not
Fine, how are you?
facing. But the most is because we're living longer is our health and not knowing where to go and how to improve that.
Our clients, the pensioners, they have issues with housing, with wealth benefits, or the state pensions, maybe health issues as well, and sometimes they need to support with different things, filling the forms or I don't know, applying for things, the travel documents, or there is that the free I forgot free oyster.
Social assistance house.
cost of living and live, like people like can't afford the healthcare, paying for its time in hospitals and things like that.
I think loneliness is the big problem because they've lost a lot of their friends, and also mobility because of that prevents you going out and meeting people. I also think technology is a big part. A lot of older people don't know how to use a computer, and a lot of things you have to go online to deal with them, like pay bills.
This is it. It has come to an end now. Every Tuesday, 5 to 6, your Money Matters show. On that note, I say farewell to you until next Tuesday at 5 p.m. Thank you.
PCO claim মিনি ক্যাব ড্রাইভারের বিপদর বন্ধু গাড়ি অ্যাক্সিডেন্ট
There we are.
হইয়া জবলেস হওয়ার দিন শেষ জাস্ট ওয়ান